we go, Brownies. Here we go. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. You rockin' brown and orange with me, baby. Let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Heisong, coming at you live from Sneads Ferry, North Carolina, and joined with me, as always, out in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. We've got Dustin. Dustin, how you living? What's going on?
Ooh, the weather is nice. It's been May. The weather has been great around here in Cleveland. A few rainy days, but our Cavs, a little banged up. Getting beat up a little bit. Yeah. So I mean, I wish him the best, right? But when you're out Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell, that's a tough get against the number one seed in the East. So I mean, wish him luck. But I tell you what, who has been playing really good as of late and has won 2 in a row against the defending champions of baseball is our Cleveland Guardians, playing great baseball right now with not much salary and making the most of it. And I got to tell you, I am very thoroughly enjoying going to these baseball games. The Guardians, they're fun. They're great. I mean, they're fun to go down and just hang out, walk around, have a beer, take in the food. I know you're a big Guardians fan. You like going to the Guardians games and stuff. But no, it's been fun. But yeah, now it's schedule release time right now officially in the NFL. They're releasing the schedule as we speak. Some of those have already been sneaked out. Obviously, the Cowboys and the Browns. Big primetime game, 4:25 Eastern, to kick off the season right here in Cleveland with a marquee opponent. Not America's team. I won't say it, but anyway.
Let's get into that. First and foremost, everybody, here in just a few moments, we're going to be welcoming on David Njoku to the program. So drop your comments, questions live tonight. So we'll hopefully be able to ask him a couple of your questions. Drop those in the comments. But let's talk about the schedule. We know that the Browns are opening at home versus the Dallas Cowboys. Not only are they opening versus the Dallas Cowboys, that will also be Tom Brady's first broadcasting opportunity. So we'll get to hear that. Yeah. That'll be interesting. Right. Just some notable things here. We have a Week 10 bye, which is pretty good. I mean, that's I would consider kind of an ideal place for a bye. Right in the middle of the season. And then technically 4 primetime games, Week 12 versus the Steelers, Thursday night football, Week 13 at Broncos, Monday night football at Bengals, Thursday night football, and then Sunday night football, Week 17 against the Dolphins. So obviously things can change, can get flexed around, but not a bad place for a bye week.
Well, let's talk about this. You bring up the bye week. It falls at a great time, and I guess where you just shared this with me, it was put out on Twitter, but you have 3 home games in a row and then a bye week, so you don't even have to go on the road. I mean, you literally, it's almost like getting an extra week off because you're already at home. You go home to your house, you sleep, you go right into that bye week. It's like a nice 2 weeks after being at home and then going on the road to New Orleans and then coming right back home for it looks like Thursday night football against the Steelers. That's 4. I mean, you're all at home almost 6 weeks there. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Like that's a great stretch. If the Browns can make a push near the end of the season right there, that's a great run right there at the end of the season.
Definitely. I mean, you're opening with I would say the bulk of the second quarters of the season are going to be your NFC opponents. I mean, so you're really kind of closing with a lot of AFC teams, which do with that with what you will. That could kind of be a make or break. I mean, if this is last season, that could have been detrimental, obviously, based on the injuries that the Browns had suffered. That really would have just been brutal. But with the optimism going into the season and the hope and just the energy surrounding this football team, obviously we know that this team is all in right here, right now to go win the damn thing this year. Yeah. Look at the schedule. It's tough. I mean, this is a tough schedule, but I think there's a couple of things on your side.
Toughest in the NFL, according to
toughest in the league, yeah.
Well, and you know what's interesting, if you looked at that, the top 3 teams that had this year going into it, and we always know it's always a little bit weird because they're going off of last season's teams and you don't know what these teams are going to look like this year. but the top 3 teams that have the toughest schedule are in our division, right? So guess what? We beat the hell out of each other every year, and we have to play each other twice. So it's kind of interesting that all happens, like, well, yeah, we just beat each other up because we're so physical. And I don't know if you saw this, but recently CJ Stroud made a comment where he was on a podcast and everybody was like, the guy, I don't know who it was. I'm trying to remember who he was talking to, but he literally said, the AFC North is the toughest division, bro. He was like, look. He goes, they're all playoff teams. Like the entire division is playoff teams. And he said the AFC South is getting there, but he said the AFC North, and they were trying to equate to the NFC East. And he's like, you're crazy. Like the NFC East is not even close to the AFC North, but it was like,
well, he's talking to Micah Parsons. So
but I mean, but if you think about that, when he was talking to Micah, like that's crazy to me, like that we're that competitive. And now the Browns actually win those games in the AFC. I mean, it was not too long ago, Allie, 4 or 5 years ago when we were talking that the Browns were lucky to win a division game, right? Now we're competing in those division games and actually winning those games. So it's a very different football team. It's a very different time for the Cleveland Browns. And I got to say, I was like, you kind of have these epiphanies in your mind and you think about things. And I said, the next 2 years are kind of this is the Browns window. I said, the next 2 years are kind of that window. And I said, they got to make hay this year and next year with this football team and this roster if they're going to make a deep playoff run. And that was my gut, just looking at the roster, turnover, people that are going to be nearing their ends of their contracts. The next 2 years are going to be very important to the Cleveland Browns.
Well, I think that Andrew Berry and this front office have been very transparent about that they recognize that this is their window to win. This is their window to do it. And you can tell that based off of the contracts, the extensions. It is over the next 2 years. I would agree with that, 2 to 3 years, where it may be even less than that. It could be this year that they are all in on going and doing the thing. And based off of their free agent signings, what they do in the draft. I mean, and they've done this, giving total credit here to Andrew Berry in this front office. They've done this without having a first-round pick. And they have done this by not having the level of play that they thought they would out of Deshaun Watson up until this point. Now, part of that being injury this past year, right? But if you go back a couple of years and you look at this Deshaun Watson trade, you say, hey, by 2023, 2024, he's going to be playing some of the best football of his career. And that hasn't been the case yet. So they have done all of that despite all of that adversity. So this is the time. And I think that they are well equipped to go out and do it.
Yeah. And update for anybody that is watching us tonight, it is 58-52 Celtics over the Cavs at halftime. So if you wanted a nice in-game score update, it's halftime against the Cavs right now. So now you have, 20, 30 minutes to watch us until the Cavs come back on. So.
Talk to us. Talk to David Njoku. Another thing just to hit on real quick. I don't know if you saw that Rodney McLeod announced his retirement after this season. A little surprising there. I thought, he would stick around a little bit longer in the NFL. But you know what? What do you think about that? Do you like, a player having announced their retirement preseason, saying, hey, kind of a little bit of a farewell tour, right? I mean, going and recognizing that this is it and knowing maybe why they're playing the way they're playing or saying the things that they're saying. But what do you think? What would you do? Yeah.
So for me, I'm going to say I could see both sides of it, right? So for me, I'm also letting, for one thing, if I know that, and we've heard NFL players talk about this, you kind of know when it's your time, right? When it's not fun anymore, when the preparing that you're doing every season and the offseason, all that, you kind of, it's not the same anymore, right? You reach that threshold and it's tough, right? As a player to realize mentally also that you're physically not feeling that anymore, right? I think it does two things. It lets the franchise know, hey, this is my last year. You may want to look for a replacement. You may look at free agency, trade deadline, all those things, which I think that's a nice thing for him to do and not instead of just say, after the season, I'm walking away. Second, I think for the player, back to that window for the Browns, he also knows this is his last hurrah. So I think he also knows that he's going to give it his all this year because he knows this is kind of his farewell tour. And I think he actually, in some ways, might be, this might sound weird, but even a better player because he knows tomorrow is not going to be there. So I think he almost plays a little bit more with his hair on fire. Like, hey, you know what? I don't have to worry about injuries because whatever happens, it don't matter because I ain't going to be here next year, right? So I think he can also have that attitude that he really wants to take over the game and just be all he can be for the Browns, knowing these are my guys I'm going to ride or die with this year, and we're gonna make the most of it. And you're going to get everything out of me, Coach. You know, when I'm done, I'm hanging it up. So
what would you do if you were a player? What would you do?
Boy, that's a great
Well,
question.
I guess it depends on let's play that game. Like, I guess it depends on your career, right? Like if you were a successful NFL player, you had a 10-year career and you're hanging it up. Are you gonna announce your retirement, or are you just gonna go out quietly?
Let me ask this. Is he on a 1-year contract? Do you know that or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is the end of the contract.
Okay. So to me, that has everything to do with it, right? So if I'm into a 2 or 3 year contract and this is year 1 or 2, no, I'm not announcing my retirement. If I'm going to hang it up and not fulfill my final year in the NFL or whatever. But if it is my final year and I feel like I don't have
says after the Super Bowl.
Hey, there you go.
That's what I do. That's the answer. That's the right answer.
But yeah, maybe then I'm doing it, if I know this, but he maybe knows too that there's a good chance he's not going to be re-signed, right? And he knows that he doesn't want to go to another team, right? Because then if that's the case, right, that's just how it is, right? So I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming there's family involved. There's a lot of personal decisions and reasons he's making it outside of football. I'm assuming that has a lot to do with it. We all know that weighed on the greatest quarterback in NFL history as he got to the end of his career about his children and being more, spending more time with them and being around and being in their lives. So yeah, I think there's a lot more to this, but I think he thought, hey, I can still play at a high level this year, but I'm going to hang it up after this year. So for me, if I'm in the middle of a contract, no, but yeah, I mean, if it's my 1-year contract or I think Willie McGinnis did something similar to this at one point, like after he left the Browns and went back to New England, I think he said he's going to retire. So I think really if a player feels comfortable in his position like this, yeah, I think it's okay. But for me, if I'm in the middle of a contract, no, because they might be looking to trade me mid-season or whatever. Like, who knows, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't do it. But if you clearly there was conversations internally before this announcement, I'm assuming.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to go out on the line and bring David Njoku coming up next. Real quick, before we do that, this interview is brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards.
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Woof, woof.
Hello, welcome to Lorello Vineyards, Larry and Kim Lorello. We have a beautiful Here We Go Brownies wine that we would like to offer to you this season as we did last season. We have several other award-winning wines, lovely entertainment and events coming this summer. So come and see us, wine a bit, you'll feel better.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you at the Muni lot this fall. Go Browns.
Those are our good friends over at Lorello Vineyards. This interview with David Njoku is brought to you by our friends at Lorello Vineyards. And with that, let's bring him on. David Njoku. Chief, how's it going? How are you?
Very good. How you guys doing? Good.
Good.
Good. Thanks for taking the time for us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I just finished my last workout for the day, so
Busy
Fair
day.
enough.
Before we start with the softball tournament, I want to talk about that. I want to spend a lot of time there, but I'm curious. Can you walk us through what's a day in the life in the off season like for David Njoku?
Okay. So mornings I have like field work. Well, I mean, right now with the phase that I'm in, just year 8, there's a bunch of things that we set in plan, set in stone. So this is about like phase 3 right now. It's not field work yet. It's sand work and track and field work. So I had sand routes on the sand this morning. What did I do after that? Afterwards, I got an IV. I went in my oxygen chamber, got a massage, and I went to get some more PT, and then I just finished an upper body workout. So I just got home.
So David, how many hours of the day is that? So like someone like
fucking A. I mean, I don't. It's more so just like flowing with it than like counting.
Right.
I would say probably like at least like 7 to 8 hours per day.
Yeah, as I said, that sounds intense. I mean, that's like for a person that's working, that's like a full day's worth just on a workout. Like that's crazy.
Shit. Can you blame me? That we just got the first week schedule. It's gonna be a fun one.
Well, I was just going to say, I appreciated the Cleveland Browns tagging you on week 1 when the Dallas Cowboys were announced. That's a big game, marquee 4:25 kickoff here in Cleveland, home opener against the Dallas Cowboys. Give us some thoughts on that game and what that means for the city. And is there anybody else on the schedule that you're excited with that release now? Looks like we got some primetime games, Thursday night and Monday Night Football, a Sunday night against the Dolphins. But just, walk us through that, as you prepare, just a few months away.
I mean, yeah, I'm honestly excited to play everybody, but obviously during the Pro Bowl, it was a little friendly, friendly argument between me and Michael Parsons about, Cleveland and Dallas. So like, I'm assuming that us playing them week 1 was not a coincidence. I think that, the people upstairs or wherever, with power saw this interaction. They're like, okay, let's capitalize. And I can't wait. I'm sure he's going to bring his A game along with the whole Dallas Cowboys teams, and it's up to us to bring our A game as well. So let the show begin.
Yeah.
When you talk to me about the bye week, so you guys get a week 10 bye week this season. Do you prefer an early bye week, or is that kind of the sweet spot as a player? Do you pay a lot of attention to when that bye week falls?
I mean, a little bit. I feel like, with our resources that we have now, along with, the people in charge, Kevin Stefanski, Joe Sheehan, our head trainer, everybody that's involved, they understand that, our body takes a toll throughout the year, so that they, whatever it takes for us to be ready by Sunday is what they do. And we're very appreciative on that. So honestly, now, more than any time else, it doesn't really matter for me, as long as, we have the right people, doing the right things for us.
Yeah. So funny story, David, as you know, you got a lot of fanfare when you ran over to Aiden on Thursday Night Football after the game was over and said we made the playoffs. Funny story is he's been a fan of our show for a few years in his family, and today is his birthday, if you can believe it or not. Didn't manifest that, but it's his birthday, and he's actually watching the show tonight because he loves you so much. I just thought, I just had to mention that because he's so excited.
Well, I love him too, and happy birthday to you, dog. I wish you the best. God bless you. Let's go.
Yeah. So, David, had the opportunity to go to your softball press release, over there at DTLR last Wednesday. This is a big thing, right? Greg Newsome hosted it last year. You're going to host it this year. You have a star-studded lineup, a lot of great people coming in, Des Bryant, some other folks. Tell us a little bit why you kind of chose to take this over, make it your event this year, what that means. And second, from the one thing I did take away from that interview was the fact that you came to, and I forgot this, that you came to Cleveland as a 20-year-old and as a young man, and you said Cleveland turned me into a man. And I grew up in this city, and that's one of the reasons I defend this city so well. And I think that's why the fans love you so much and have really became such, enjoy that you kind of defend the land, as one might say. So, talk a little bit about the softball game, and then obviously, how you've defended the city.
Yeah, well, for starters, in terms of, just becoming a man in Cleveland, I mean, everything that I say is the truth. It's one thing if I were just to hype up Cleveland in false, feelings, but this is really how I feel. You know what I mean? Being drafted at 20 years old, you don't really know much. You know what I mean? You're kind of thrown into the fire. So just learning, just life in general, and everything that it consists with, especially with ball. Just learning as each year goes by. Now, going on year 8 and looking back at just how far we've come. We didn't come this far just to come this far. You get me? So yeah, man, I fucking love the city. Yeah, and in terms of a softball game, they approached me with the idea of me hosting it, and I guess people think that I can throw a pretty good party. So I'm so down. I'm excited for this. I think it's gonna come. It's just gonna be huge. I think I got people from all over the country, even out of the country, flying into Cleveland. That's not really something that's heard of. I can understand New York, Miami, LA, maybe the hot cities, but Cleveland is very, very. I'm proud of that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm excited. I expect it to be a sold out crowd, I expect the energy to be high up and everything. So
yeah, and Yeah, and I say we are given Pro Bowl 85 code for anybody that's watching the show tonight with a capital P. You can get a discount thanks to David Njoku offering that to our fans here in Cleveland. Like I said, let's have a sellout crowd. But Allie, go ahead with your next question.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable to see what the city, the community can do, right? And coming together to support something so philanthropic and just exciting and fun. But I'm looking at this lineup, David, and I'm curious, who do you think is going to be the best softball player? For me, I'm all in on Granny Smith. I think she's going to be the winner. For you, who do you think who's going to be the secret MVP?
I really don't know. Obviously, it's a bunch of athletes that's on the list. It really can go anywhere. I don't know if Des Bryant can play for real. Yoel Romero is coming. I'm sure he played baseball when he was younger. Georgie Masvidal is coming. I'm sure he played when he was younger. It really can go any way. I mean, Deshaun Watson. He can throw. It really just depends on who played baseball. With of high talent. So we'll see.
Sounds like it's gonna be a good time.
I'm thinking the dark horse may be Amari Cooper, though.
There you go.
I could see that. Yeah,
Either him or
silent assassin. Yeah,
him or Josh Gordon. I've seen him hit some golf balls pretty far. So we'll see.
Well, I did see JOK's swing and that his golf swing. And you know what? The ball traveled far, but the swing was a little unorthodox. But you know what? You just talk about everybody, all athletes. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think this is going to be such a cool event. And like you said, you know how to throw a party.
Well, as I say, what would be great is we should invite Micah Parsons so he can see what Cleveland's all about, right? Invite him
for sure. I mean, I would definitely invite him. I don't know if he's going to make it, though. He's a very busy man himself. So, yeah, as long as he's there week one is all I can ask for.
Right.
David, I want to talk the NFL draft just happened and a lot of new talent coming to this team, but I want to talk about you on draft day. You were one of the first round picks in that draft. There was 3 first round picks, you, Jabril, and Miles. Can you just tell us more about your draft story? What was that like for you to get to know that you were coming to Cleveland, but just your overall draft story? What was that like to get drafted by the Cleveland Browns?
I mean, it was crazy. I had my draft party in Miami Beach. All my friends and family, my close ones were able to attend. And you really don't know where you're going to go, especially with me. Like with Miles, I'm sure Miles knew he was going to be the number 1 pick and he was going to Cleveland and everything. But with me, it could literally be anywhere in the country. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of exciting and also nerve-wracking for a guy as young as, 20 years old. So, it's honestly kind of blurry. Mind you, it was 8 years ago. That's a long time. But at the same time, it was a blessing, a true blessing.
Yeah, so tell me this. Obviously, you have some other greats that have played in Cleveland. Obviously, you've had some interaction with Bernie, who's a University of Miami alum, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
You guys probably can share some Miami stories. What's special about that university and like you said, alumni that come out of there? It's brought out a lot of great players into the NFL. And, what do they do a little differently than some, other colleges do?
I mean, I feel like University of Miami is more so like a brotherhood. Even me, I train there when I do track and field work and when I do some sandpit work too. Just going back there and just seeing the kids there, it's automatically a connection because, just being there, being in their shoes at a certain point in time. So I always try to give back and help them with any tips or whatever I can do just to help them in any way. Even just out of ball, just your life in general. So it's I see it as like a brotherhood. Like we're all family type relation.
I was watching the Browns released, I think it was today actually, a clip on you, and I'm like, well, that's perfect timing. I'm going to watch that as we're having him on later. And one thing that stood out to me was the tattoo that you have, the strength of the wolf is the pack. And I thought that was so interesting. And I want to talk about that a little bit. When you got to Cleveland, times were tough. That was a totally different team, totally different culture. Those were the lean years, if you will. But now you've been with the team for, this is year 8, and you've been an integral part of building a winning culture. Can you just talk about that and, kind of what it has taken to get to this point?
Honestly, I feel like the one of the main things I realized is involved in a winning culture is the players playing not just for themselves, but for each other. The connection that we have as a team. In my first year or so, I didn't really feel that. I feel like it was more so like a business, but which it still is. But at the end of the day, we play best when we're playing for each other. You know, when there's more in meaning to just not just about us personally, but more so about the team. And the second I grasped that is the second I decided to just do whatever I can to bring everybody closer. You know, even if it's making jokes here and there at 7 in the morning meetings, or just doing whatever I can. You know what I mean? Just because I feel energy. I'm very strong in energy. When I feel that connection, flow, I see us play way better. So whatever it takes for us to be more connected and be great together.
Yeah.
Yeah, along those lines, obviously we have 6 new Browns in this year's draft coming to Cleveland. My question for you is like you said, it was more like a business that first year, and then going into that second year. First question is, have you been able to talk to any of the new rookies that have come to Cleveland? And second, was there a particular player that kind of took you under his wing on the roster that kind of welcomed you more and kind of was there for you when you first started out with the Browns?
I always hold Jarvis Landry at such high respect because I feel like he personally did one of the most to change the culture. You know what I mean? And it wasn't because of his super fast speed or his super strong, or his super strength. It was more so his passion, his heart, his emotion towards the game and towards the team. You know what I mean? It wasn't just that he loved football, but he really sincerely loved the team. And that kind of stuck in me for, I guess, my whole career to this day, really. In terms of just loving the players that I'm playing with, that I share the battlefield with. You know what I mean? It's always for my whole career been X's and O's and catch, touchdown, pass, routes. But ever since I got burned that week against the Ravens, I felt like it was way more than just ball. It was more so like like we're modern day gladiators. You know what I mean? Which is more so exciting in terms of like just investing that much more into it. Like most people invest, their time. They grind hard as hell. They do all this stuff, but to invest that emotional and spiritual energy is way deeper than just the surface. So yeah.
David, I'll get you out of here on this one. Our friend George asked the age-old question. What's your favorite thing about Cleveland?
It sounds cliche, and obviously, like it sounds like I want to sugarcoat or I want to hype, whatever. But the fucking fans, man, they are second to none, and that's why I really need to see all the fans there at the softball game because they electrify us. We feed up their energy, they feed up our energy, and the energy just flows beautifully. So
Yeah.
I have to be the fans.
I got to say this and I know you felt this coming on the field, but that Thursday night football game, I felt that game in some ways.
It does not get better than that at all.
Yeah, I felt that game was won before the kickoff, if that makes sense, because the crowd and the energy was so on top. You could just feel it, you could just feel in the building what that was like. And if you're the opponent, right, come into that, you're like, ugh, like this is going to be like something that's going to be very hard to deal with. And from the get-go, you guys had such a fast start to that game, and I think, like you said, you feed off the player or
I'm telling you,
the city.
It makes it that much more fun and that much more beautiful that we have success together. Fans, players, togetherness. Like what I mean, and that's why I really wanted to be present after the game and take that victory lap. Share some beers with the fans. Because it was that beautiful feeling that we did this together. You know what I mean? So yeah, for sure.
Well,
and under such special circumstances too, with Joe Flacco. I mean, Brian makes the comment here, the chemistry with Joe Flacco, that was amazing. Under the most insane of circumstances, what a year full of adversity, but man, what a way to overcome that. And as a fan, fans of you, fans of the Browns, man, you can feel that, and you really can. Dustin and I, the last game we were at together, we try to do a game a year, was 2 years ago, and that was Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, but Jacoby Brissett too. Chief David Njoku in the end zone to win the game, and I still carry that with me. I could get emotional thinking about it. It was that cool.
Yeah, it was a beautiful game, and it was a hard-fought game too. Most of the team was banged up that game as well, but God is good. We found a way to knock down the big old bad Tom Brady, and I got his jersey afterwards. It was a dream come true.
Yeah, and as I say, now you get to listen to him, you put him into retirement, Chief. You put him into
I
retirement.
didn't do that. Don't do that. He is the greatest of all time, and he's a great person.
He is.
Too. Talking to him, he's a great person. So
yeah, as I say, talk about work ethic and your 7 to 8 hours of work. Working out. He eats, lives, and breathes that even to this day. He's one of those people that
absolutely.
That's why he's the greatest, right? Because he does that. I always think of him like LeBron James, another Cleveland guy. He puts in so much workout, day in and day out to be able to go and compete on the field and stay healthy. What you guys do to your bodies in the season, what it takes to go out there and play for us is phenomenal, because it takes, like you said, a hell of a lot of work, 7 to 8 hours just to get back in the field.
Gotta love it.
Chief, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a great day. Go Brownies. Let's get it. Let's go.
Go Browns. Thank you.
Please.
That is David Njoku. That was awesome. That was freaking cool. That's all I got. End of the show. Thanks for joining. That was cool.
I was just gonna say, right after.
So I can't carry on. I don't know what else to say the rest of this podcast. So thanks for tuning in.
Full disclosure, this is a family show, but I think he got all of our FSs out of the way for the next year.
Hey, you know what? If anybody's gonna do it, it's him. He can.
Yeah.
It's fine by me. No, that was great. That interview is brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards. And by the way, go get your official Here We Go Brownies podcast wine there. You can go to Geneva, their storefront, get it. Let's get into it. We've got some more to talk about. We're going to bring David on here in just a moment for the medical moment.
That's okay. By the way,
talk more about bye weeks, but
just sidebar. That's a lot for David to follow. David, I'm just putting that out there to follow.
But you know what? David, we're good. We're good here. Everybody can do it.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you've been in a business or like a speech, and you're like, I have to follow.
Oh yeah, and you're like, I have to follow that guy. I know. Yeah. Speaking of, I want to talk about this real quick. We didn't talk about this last week. Was the Tom Brady roast? Did you catch any of that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, he's now come out and said he won't do it again because
of his kids. Would you? Okay, my question is, would you ever expose yourself to anything like that? Like, let's just say we did a Here We Go Brownies roast. Like, would you ever want to be roasted? Because I would go home and cry. Like, I'm too sensitive. I can't do that.
Well, let's just put it this way. I made a monumental move to Cleveland, Ohio. I haven't lived anywhere else in my life. My going away party was a roast. And guess what? You got to hear it all. And by the way, because guess what? It's like the airing of your grievances. And it's like, I got to tell you, it's fun, but people want to. And here's the thing. If people poke fun at you, they typically like you, right? That's typically, when people are quiet and they don't talk to you, that's typically they're pissed off and they don't want to have anything to do with you, right? But no, the truth is, would I do it? Yeah, but man, it can get dicey. But there were some nuggets that I took away from that special. Like, hey, you know who's not here tonight? Roger Goodell. And by the way, you could have just given me the $20 million, and I would have told you, hey, I might have known about deflated footballs.
No, he said I effing did it. I would have. There's no way. I'm too sensitive. If my sister makes fun of me just a little too much, I'm in tears. So I can't do a public roast. But all right, let's go ahead and.
But could you do a public roast of somebody? That's a good question.
Of course I could. Of course I could. In fact, I'm gonna start preparing a roast for you. We're gonna do that next show. Surprise.
Okay.
Guys, if you don't have stadium mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste, love from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium mustard is a smooth brown mustard rich in both taste and tradition. And by the way, it's loved by millions. So head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. Let's go ahead and bring on Dr. David Ullery to the program. David, you got some big shoes to fill here. You're going behind David Njoku. What's that like?
I have no expectations. I knew coming in, I can't really match that beyond having the same name as him. Can you hear me?
Can you hear what? Hang on.
I can hear. Yeah, I can hear.
What's wrong?
Hang on.
There she goes. Coming in, I had big expectations for the other David, and he blew away as expected.
That's true. We had two Davids on tonight. That's the first time ever.
No, that was a very enjoyable segment. It was nice having him on and seeing him.
I don't know what just happened. You know what? It was playing in my ears. Did you guys hear anything, or was it just me?
Nope.
Well, I heard Larry and Kim Lorello doing the "Here We Go Brownies" chant at the beginning of that clip that we just played. I don't know why that played in my ear, but just had to get through that commercial. But that was weird. Hi, David.
Hello.
So I don't know what you guys talked about because I couldn't hear you. But you're following up David Njoku. But one thing I don't know if you're listening to that. I asked him was where what his philosophy was on where the bye week falls. So I want to talk about bye weeks tonight and what that could potentially mean for a recovery standpoint from a player perspective, because he mentioned, we've got a lot of resources, we've got a lot of, we've got massage, we've got all sorts of different types of recovery resources to get back to full strength. But I want to talk about kind of where it falls in the schedule and what can be more beneficial for a team.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty good segue. Thank you for setting that up because I did hear that during the show or during the segment with Chief. So the bye week, there's a lot of, I don't know if I would say controversy, but there's a lot of, there can be some disgruntled teams depending on when your bye week falls. Certainly, I'm looking at the schedules this year. For some relevant teams, for us, the Lions bye week is week 5. And the Browns bye week is week 10. So that's a pretty big difference in terms of just when the bye week lands. But, I think when you ask players their preference on where it's going to be, you're going to get some varied answers. I mean, like Njoku said, he's fine with it. He doesn't really care when it is because we got to play. We're just going to get the job done. And you have all of these modalities and treatment resources available to you day in and day out that you're going to get the treatment you need no matter what. I think, where it becomes a little bit more advantageous is if you have someone who, is injured, first or second quarter of the season, and you have a bye week, say week 9 or 10, that extra week off is just, maybe it's a key player. It's one less game that you have to worry about playing without that key player. And I think that's where it's a little bit more important because the bye week doesn't necessarily speed up someone's recovery or healing process. But someone's on a 4-week timeline, they're on a 4-week timeline, but it maybe gives the rest of the team a chance to kind of breathe if it's someone who is very pivotal or plays a very pivotal position. And that's, I think, probably how a lot of guys look at it. Certainly it does give more time off, but there was an article in The Athletic in 2019 that I was looking at what the NFL bye week means for health and recovery. And one of the things that I found pretty interesting and probably the biggest takeaway from it was that the extra rest while helping players heal and recover mentally and physically, it really doesn't make a difference on the backside of that break. And so what I mean by that is, according to some NFL injury data, there really is not much correlation between number of days off between games and the rate of injury within the season. Now, of course, if we're talking about off-season into preseason games, we know we see a spike in injuries just because you cannot replicate game speed and game action. But during the season, we really don't see a big difference week to week, even with that bye week included, of an increase in injuries afterwards. And I think one big factor or reason for that is because the majority of injuries that happen in the NFL, even though we always talk about the non-contact injury, be it an ACL or an Achilles, the majority of injuries are due to player-on-player contact injuries. And so, quote directly from this article was, in other words, being well rested won't do much to protect a player from another player falling on top of him. And so if the majority of injuries that occur in a football game occur because of contact or someone falling on another player, no matter how well rested you are, you can't avoid that by having a week off. And they mentioned how some of the data also shows that, for example, on a Thursday night game, the risk of injury for Thursday night game, which is only 3 days of rest from a game on Sunday, is virtually equal to that of the risk of injury after a 13-day rest because of a bye. And so there really is no reduction in injury risk during or because of the bye week. It's more or less kind of a function of just getting a break. Because, as much as the NFL season is a physical it has a physical impact on players. It's got a mental goal too. It is it's mentally grueling. It's quite a slog, especially if think about the Lions. They play 4 games, they have a week off, and then they play 13 games straight. And if they go into the playoffs and the wild card, they don't get a break. They don't get a break from end of October, mid-October until potentially February, depending on how far. And so that is where I think it really plays a bigger role. And, oh my gosh, I am so sorry.
Birdie, she's bad. It's been raining here all day, so she slept all day long.
She's up.
So that's why she's a little chaotic tonight.
Yeah, and she has a lot to say about bye weeks, clearly.
She's passionate.
So I think that's where it plays a bigger role. Truly, is the the mental toll it takes on someone. I'm thinking like looking down the pipe, like, man, we got a lot to go here. We got to get through this. But I mean, it's their job. They're professionals. They know how to do it. They know how to get through it. And like Chief said, you get, a massage once a day, and you get in the training room, and you get in ice baths, and you get, whether it's cupping or any sort of other treatments and modalities to help you recover, and hopefully you get through it.
Yeah, and he said he went into like an oxygen chamber, right? He was doing that too.
Yeah, so he said my hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So whether it's at home or they have one at the practice facilities, that just really helps with recovery as well. Just because, I mean, it's essentially, I don't know what the percentage is on it, but it's super oxygenated air, and so it just helps restore oxygenation to the tissues, which then in turn helps you improve your performance. And it's not so much about it essentially just helps you perform better or recover quicker, so you can perform better on another subsequent. Like you said, he went and did an upper body workout later.
Well, you know what? Speaking of that, Allie, and you can, we all put 7 or 8, 10-hour job days in, right? That's our job, right? The fact, I mean, it just was kind of eye-opening that he works out 7 to 8 hours a day. Like in some form or fashion, he's doing something, working out, in recovery, back and forth. I mean, that's a lot. And think about it, that's the off season. Like that's not even the regular season. That's his conditioning. It just really says what these players do and put their bodies through just to be able to go and play a football season. It's intense. Like, I mean, it really, when you hear that come out and he's like, it's effing hard. Like, it's like, like this is what I just got done and I'm kind of wiped out. Right. So it says a lot.
And I think part of it too is it totally depends on the position, right? It depends on the player, depends on what the expectations for that player are going into the next season. And for David Njoku, I mean, the clip that I watched, the Cleveland Browns released it today. It's on YouTube. Andrew Berry, Andrew Berry mentioned something along the lines of, we never have to worry about the shape that David Njoku is going to be in, as well as his as well as his mental well-being. He's going to be ready 100% of the time. And we've known that about, hi, Birdie Banana. We've known that about David Njoku throughout his career, right? Mm-hmm. He is going to be ready. And the type of player that he is, taking the extra mile and putting all of that effort into his body. I mean, obviously it doesn't go unnoticed. You can see it. But the strength too. I mean, remember the Baltimore game last year when he drug 15 defenders along with him 15 yards. So it's very evident. Right. It's very evident that, obviously this is their jobs. This is what they do. And this is their expectation. But nonetheless, it is crazy, to the average person.
I mean, you think defenders are getting weaker or slower in the offseason, or like this next generation of players coming in as weaker or slower? No, they're not. And so he also not only maintaining what he has from a physical standpoint or from a, ability to run routes and catch the ball standpoint, he's got to get stronger and faster too. So he's got to be making those gains and making progress in the offseason, so that when, the next evolution of a Micah Parsons or someone like that comes in, who's a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, he's able to keep up with them and, break a tackle and get that extra yard for the first down. And so someone like him definitely has to put in that time and effort just to maintain his level of play and
sure.
Just like he did last year.
David, you brought up a good point in a previous episode. Like, are injuries more prevalent now than they were in the past? And, we have all these safety things in place now. But I really do believe, because of technology, how players are now faster, stronger, just because technology has given players much more ability to things that they did not have 20, 30 years ago. And I think technology, even though safety measures are being put in place, I think players now can compete at a higher level with stronger, faster, because equipment and all the technology is just so much better. I just think it makes them a better player. And, it just makes them be able to perform better, even while you're doing all these safety precautions. You're going to have some violent collisions and stuff like that, because these players are just like superhuman. And so it is interesting. Safety measures are put in place to try to combat that, but the player's just getting better, right? Like they're just a better player, like overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
David, shout out to our good friend George for coming up with the medical moment conversation for next week. We could talk a little bit about turf toe and maybe turf versus grass. So that's a good idea. David, thanks for joining us. As always, we always get a little smarter every time we talk to you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you for having me on, as always.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
That is Dr. David Ellery. That interview was brought to you by our friends over at Stadium Mustard. Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about Teresa's Pizza?
Teresa's Pizza in University Heights and Mayfield Heights. Check them out. They're a great family-owned business. Been in this area since 1969, Teresa's Pizzas. Great location over there in Mayfield Heights and University Heights. And by the way, if you're going to be a part of the Cleveland Marathon this weekend, yes, Allie, I'm doing the 5K Cleveland Marathon this weekend. They're going to be serving some amazing Teresa's Pizza, so you can carb load
Awesome.
after that race. But yeah, awesome, folks. It's great pizza, Allie. You know what's cool about their pizza? They have the pepperoni and all the stuff under the cheese. You know what I'm saying? So all the stuff is underneath, so you get the cheese on top. So all the goodies are underneath that, between that and the layer of crust. So it's kind of a different style, but
Beautiful.
really good. But you're gonna have to try some, Allie, because I know you're a big pizza fan. You have to try some. So.
You know I will. Next time I'm home, it's happening. All right, let's get into it. We're gonna go a little bit quickly here, just because we only have 15 minutes left of the program. But last week we did a game of Did Andrew Berry Get It Right, and we started out with the 2020 season. We are going to move on to the 2021 draft class and take a look at all of the picks that they selected in the 2021 draft, and then taking a look at the next player at that position and just talking about, did he essentially get it right? Just like 2020, there's some hits, there's also some misses. So let's get into it. With the 26th pick in the 2021 NFL draft, we were here in person for this one, Dustin. The Browns took Greg Newsome. As we know, Greg, he's moved around from outside to nickel. Browns just picked up the 5th-year option over the course of his Browns career so far. He has 128 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, 4 TFLs, and 29 passes defensed. Pretty successful career so far. Now, I know that this was a very, very loaded corner draft. And just like the year prior, we needed a tackle. There was like 15 tackles ready to go. This draft, you need a corner. There was a plethora of corners. Right. So the Browns get a hold of Greg Newsome. Now, the next corner to go was just a couple slots later at number 29 overall. The Packers selected Eric Stokes. Now, Eric has battled through several injuries. The Packers did decline the 5th-year option on this player. And over the course of his career, he has 1 interception, 14 passes defensed, 87 tackles, and 1 TFL. So did Andrew Berry get it right? The answer is yes. Greg Newsome has been a very solid player for the Browns. He's battled through some injuries, through some adversity, a pretty crowded corner room at times during his career. And he's moved around from outside to inside slot, to nickel, to just about everything. So he's done it all. I think this is going to be a really big year for him. But I think that Andrew Berry got this one right.
I think he did as well. And we talked about this, I think, on a previous show. I think Greg Newsome had his best season last year. I think, that pick 6 that he had as well last year, intercepted and ran it in. Here's the thing about Greg Newsome. He performed great, in my opinion, at times last year, and really good, even with the emergence of Martin Emerson and, like you said, the crowded cornerback room. He still excelled in that position and did well. So, yes, do I think Andrew Berry got it right? Yes. And again, like I said, he has been one of those players that even through injuries, he has continued to try to make his game better, and he has, and he's excelled at that. And obviously that's why the Browns saw the value of exercising his 5th-year option, because guess what? I saw a list about a week or 10 days ago of a lot of teams that did not exercise their 5th-year option, and some of those surprised me. So, that they did not exercise those 5th-year options on some of those players. Sure. So yeah, this was interesting for sure. But I think yes, they got it right.
So just a couple of picks later. So he was 26. Eric Stokes went next. Couple of just notable players. The next notable one was Asante Samuel Jr. The Chargers grabbed him. Pick in the 2nd round, pick 47 overall, who's had a pretty successful career. But overall, I think that Andrew Berry got this one right. Next up on the list is where the Browns got JOK. We all thought this was a steal, and frankly, it was. Number 52 overall, the Browns get Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He was a Pro Bowler in 2023. Great season last year, really developing into a very, very solid player, finding a really good role with the Browns, kind of drafted as your hybrid linebacker safety. Last year, we saw him even getting after the quarterback, being more of a pass rusher. So kind of a jack of all trades, but really good at what he does. 247 tackles, 30 TFLs, 10 quarterback hits, 5 sacks, 14 passes defense, and 2 interceptions. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So he was at number 52 overall. The next linebacker that went off the board was Nick Bolton to the Chiefs, number 58 overall, who's had a great career. Now, the numbers are pretty similar in a lot of ways. So I think we have to have an open and honest conversation about this. But I'm going to go based off of scheme here. Well, let's talk about his raw stats first. Nick Bolton, 2-time Super Bowl champ, 352 tackles, 21 TFLs, 10 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 9 passes defensed, and 3 interceptions. So a pretty similar career to JOK in a lot of ways, but 2 totally different players, right? You know, JOK was more of your hybrid type of player, hyper athletic. You know, Nick Bolton is more of your just traditional off-ball linebacker. So 2 totally different players that have had insanely good careers up to this point. So, you know, you could look at this and say, you know, maybe Nick Bolton would have been a better fit, but you have to look at scheme. You have to look at the surrounding cast. You have to look at the roster at that time when these players were drafted to have a real conversation. So I did say that Andrew Berry got this one right. Both are really good players, and I think you would have gotten productivity out of both of them. But for what the Browns needed at that time, the type of player that they needed was JOK, and I still think JOK has a higher ceiling. So I think Andrew Berry got this one right.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this, that clearly the Browns got it right. And I think you hit it, and I was going to go into somewhat of in-depth on this. You look at a team, like you said, traditional linebacker for the Chiefs, and the Browns at times don't really value the linebacking position like other teams do, right? Yeah. And so was this the right type of player, that, like you said, that hybrid safety guy? Yeah, I think this was the right guy and for the right scheme for this football team. And I will tell you this, front of the program, Felix Wright, I have asked him, what's your opinion on JOK? And he goes, that guy's the real dude. That guy is like, and so when you got a guy like Felix Wright, a former Browns player that played in 3 AFC championship games, I feel like is a pretty good judge of the eyeball test, as they say, right? And he knows that that guy's the real deal because he's down there on the field for game day seeing that. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think the Browns got this right. And, again, I think you were very – again, when it comes to scheme with the Browns and how they value the linebacker position versus other football teams, I think this makes the right fit. And here's the other thing. Yes, he's a two-time Super Bowl champion. Well, guess what? 31 other teams don't have Patrick Mahomes.
Right. Yeah, that's a hard thing. It's not even like a linebacker stat. I'm just putting any accolades on there.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you put Patrick Mahomes on the Cleveland Browns for these last 3 years.
Having a different conversation.
With that talent, yeah, maybe you're talking about JOK being a 2-time Super Bowl champion.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. That's fair. Okay, next up on the list, this is where the Browns went receiver. All right, let's get into this one. At number 91 overall in the 3rd round, the Browns select Anthony Schwartz, who had 14 receptions for 186 yards, 1 touchdown, with a 42% catch percentage. Now, shortly after that, a couple of picks later, the Titans select Des Patrick, who had an even worse career. He was drafted by the Titans, signed a futures deal with the Steelers. He had 5 receptions for 49 yards, 1 touchdown with a 62% catch percentage. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Both of those picks, both teams probably wish they had back, because at 112, that is where the Lions drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is first-team All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler. Through his career, 315 receptions for 3,588 yards and 21 touchdowns with a 73% catch percentage, and just signed a massive extension with the Lions. So you'd have to think that both teams, the Browns and the Titans, would want to have that pick back.
Well, here's the thing. Draft picks are hit or misses, right? Like you said. So Titans got it wrong. The Browns got it wrong. There was a lot of hope for Schwartz with that maybe game-changing speed, but he just never got comfortable in the room, never was a sure-handed guy out there to be trusted upon with the quarterbacks to catch the ball. And unfortunately, speed only gets you so far in the NFL if you can't catch the ball and you can't make the most of it. So, yes, I think the Titans got it wrong. The Browns got it wrong. And that just happens to happen, right? Like sometimes you just hit and sometimes you miss. How many quarterbacks were taken before Patrick Mahomes? I mean, that's my point.
Right.
Sometimes you're just not going to get the best when the best is right there and you don't pick them. So it is what it is. Well,
It is what it
hello.
is.
I mean, the Browns could have picked Deshaun Watson. We know that. That story's been told as well. And maybe we're not, having a mega trade.
It's true. That's true. Okay, next up on the list, the Browns select James Hudson at 110 overall. And, not necessarily to rub it in Browns fans' faces, but you take a look at that Amon-Ra St. Brown pick at 112. The Browns had 2 picks before he was selected. So they went Anthony Schwartz at 91, and then they went James Hudson at 110. So they could have had him twice. Chose, that obviously, like, hindsight's 2020, but area of
needs probably
area of need, and they drafted James Hudson, the tackle out of Cincinnati. He was acquired with the pick that they received when they traded Jannard Avery to the Eagles. Look, James Hudson was a swing tackle, played some defensive line at Cincinnati, comes in, he's an offensive tackle, kind of fighting for his NFL life at this point. Hasn't been consistent. It's been, I think that it's been tough, but also circumstances have been tough for the Browns. But he's gotten some decent playing time just based off of injuries. But shortly after that, at 128, that's where the Steelers selected Dan Moore, who's been a starter for them. And I mean, really, offensive line stats are kind of difficult to analyze. So you have to kind of look at like the games they've played. So I mean, for him, he has played in and started 49 games over the course of his career. Then if you look at James Hudson here, give me 1 second, it's getting pulled up. Where's that at? It's not in front of me. Stand by.
No, you're good.
I'm sorry, my PFF is not loading. Nonetheless, I mean, I think that Andrew Berry did get this one wrong. Just based off of the starting potential here at Dan Moore. He's been a pretty solid starter for them, pretty decent player. So I'm going to say that Andrew Berry, the Browns front office, they ended up getting this one wrong.
Yeah, I would agree based on him bouncing around in the NFL.
Sure.
But here's the thing that also when you look at, if we look at drafts, and even though the Browns didn't have a first-round draft pick, where the Browns kind of turned the corner was kind of 2021 on. If you look at where the Browns kind of finally made that turn, right? They were not having to – I mean, we talked about this. You'd get in a game, and there were some pretty thin rosters, right? Like where there wasn't a lot of people. And I just think Andrew Berry was drafting from a different hymnal, in 2021, where differently from where he is 22, 23, and 24, where now he has talent, and he's not having to fill as many holes the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think on this one, he specifically was like, okay, based on what we did pre-draft analysis, this looks like our guy. We have a need. This is where we're going to draft the guy. And you're right. Sometimes when you kind of have to draft for needs, you're going to miss because you know that you need someone in that position as maybe a good key backup or wherever that person needs to play in that role. So I think sometimes these drafts we look back and Andrew Berry got right probably half the time, but then half the time
right.
he didn't.
And that you're going to win some, you're going to lose some.
And
couple of losses there.
And by the way, in the NFL, any GM, when they've spoken, if they can get it right half the time, they're in good shape, right? Because they're going to miss. But when you miss a lot, it's very detrimental to your NFL.
Well, look at your first 2 picks. You get Greg Newsome, JOK, and then have a couple of misses here in Anthony Schwartz, James Hudson, and then with the next pick, 132. This is where the Browns select Tommy Togiai. He was released by the Browns in 2023. He's bounced around to a few different practice squads. He was signed to the Falcons' active roster last year. During his time in the NFL, 29 tackles, 1 sack, 0 TFLs, and 3 quarterback hits. Shortly after that, that's where the Steelers selected Isaiah Loudermilk. Now, technically, Isaiah is listed as a defensive end, but coming into it was at a tackle. So just a reminder that is how we are operating at the next position drafted. He's still with the team. He's had 46 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, 1 quarterback hit. So I'm going to say in this one, just because, Isaiah is still with the team and does have some better stats. I'm going to give the Steelers the nod here and say Andrew Berry didn't get this one right, but it was a little bit thin at defensive tackle at this point
Correct.
forward. So, I mean, you know, Tommy Togiai had great production at Ohio State. Like, he can't really, I don't know. I don't think it was a bad selection. It just didn't work out, kind of thing.
Yeah. And again, I got to know, I knew Tommy Togiai because, and I don't know if you knew this, but I mean, obviously he was from Idaho, but he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in high school. So, I mean, he comes out of high school. Urban Meyer literally went to his house in Idaho and, recruited him. And then he goes, like you said, to Ohio State, to a big-time program, has good production, at a big-time program. So what is Andrew Berry like? Young guys at big-time schools with high production, right? Like young ages. So he fit the guardrails for what Andrew Berry was trying to do. Like you said, again, thin at that position. Boy, we got to take this guy here. So that's one of those things.
All right, we're going to go kind of rapid fire here just because we're a little pressed for time. But 153, this is where they took linebacker Tony Fields, who's still with the team, 86 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 forced fumble during his time with the Browns. At 170, this is where the Texans went with Garrett Wallow. He was drafted by the Texans. He's played there for a bit, then signed to a practice squad, and then recently signed with the Tennessee Titans. 42 tackles, 3 TFLs, 1 quarterback hit. Look, Andrew Berry got this one right. Tony's still with the team. Now, he's not going to be your a starter, right? But he is a rotational key piece of this linebacking core. I think that AB got this one right. Do you agree with that one?
As well, and I think he's a good, solid player. Like I said,
solid player.
He's going to be good for rotations, and that's the role he's played with the Browns.
Yep. All right, next one. This is a little bit of a miss here. Richard LeCounte at 169, the safety out of Georgia. That's who the Browns selected. He was released by the Browns in 2022. He joined the practice squad of the Bucs and the Rams, but he is not currently on a team. During his time in the NFL, he recorded 3 tackles. Now, that was at 169. At pick 180, the 49ers selected Talanoa Hufanga, who in 2022 was first-team All-Pro. He was a Pro Bowler in 2022 and has 181 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 TFLs, 6 quarterback hits, 7 interceptions, and 14 passes defensed as a linebacker. So clearly obvious, as a safety. Clearly and obviously, Andrew Berry did not get this one right in drafting Richard LeCounte.
100% agree.
You agree with that? Okay.
But by the way, he came in with high accolades, and a lot of people.
No, you know what? He falls into the same category, right? He had high production at Georgia. He was a young player. He fit the guardrails. Absolutely. And I don't fault him for these selections, right? But especially when you're drafting this late, these are just sometimes can be a shot in the dark. And that is kind of where you fall with this next and final selection of the 2021 draft. At 211, this is where the Browns drafted Demetric Felton, who had a very productive rookie season with the Browns, kind of a Swiss Army knife, if you will, friend of the program. He was released in 2023, went down to Cincinnati, was on a practice squad, but he is not currently on a team. So kind of a hybrid, right? Receiving and rushing. He did a little bit of both. As a receiver, he had 20 receptions for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns with an 80% catch percentage. And for rushing, he had 8 carries for 20 yards and no touchdowns. Now, productive rookie season, but then you take a look at the next running back that was drafted, and that was Khalil Herbert, who is the starting running back. Well, now they've got DeAndre Swift, but for the Bears, he was the starter last year. And you take a look at his, his stats, very similar player in terms of receiving and rushing threat, but a totally different player in terms of production. Receiving, he had 43 receptions for 287 yards, 2 touchdowns with a 72 catch percentage. And for rushing, 364 carries for 1,775 yards and 8 touchdowns. So again, a little bit of a shot in the dark here at this late in the draft, but the Bears hit on this one, and I will say that Andrew Berry got this one wrong.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Demetric came into, like you said, they tried to find a role for him in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Came into a very crowded running back room, right? He had a lot of competition there. So, like you said, they wanted to make him into a Swiss Army knife, see if he could do kickoffs, all those things. Athletically, he was a talented player, but just he could never find his right role with the Browns. It just seemed like he never found that comfortable spot. And, I think the Browns had a lot of high hopes for him. I think, like I said, he was a great player, friend of the program, and just couldn't find his way. At the end of the day, he just could not find our friend of the program, Eric Metcalf, as he said, I was a Swiss Army knife, and I made them find a way to use me and a reason to use me, and gave them a reason not to, make sure I was on the field, right? Like I made sure that they made sure I had to be on the field to make that, and that's unfortunately Dimitri Felton wasn't able to do that.
Yeah. As we wrap up, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Hartville Flea Market and Marketplace. They have been named one of the top 20 flea markets in the U.S. by Flea Market Insiders. Inside, they have over 3 acres of indoor shopping, 50 unique shops. By the way, it's fully heated, air conditioned. You can go any time of the year. They've got fresh produce. They've got antiques. They've got coffee. They've got food. They've got just about anything that you could need. On the outside, man, since 1939, so they're celebrating over 80 years, they have over a 12-acre lot of collectors paradise, if you will. Over 1,000 vendors. They're open Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays year-round. Antiques, produce. They've got something for everybody. So be sure to go check them out over in Hartville at the Hartville Marketplace and Flea Market. This was a great show. Really a lot of fun talking to David Njoku.
I was just going to say, do you know what the Hartville Marketplace has this weekend?
What do they have this weekend?
Ric Flair. The
Sweet.
Legendary Ric Flair, WWE superstar, will be down there with Tori Wilson and Jim Ross, kind of the WWE superstars, but that is going to be happening this weekend. Look for a bunch of other signings. Allie, real quick, guys, those mystery boxes, that's kind of a cool thing we're doing now with our friends at Primetime Sports. Some really cool autograph things in there. Look for those and get yourself a mystery box. Some great all-star Browns players in those boxes, so you don't know what you're ever going to get. So check those out from our friends at Primetime Sports.
Go check them out. This was a lot of fun talking to Chief David Njoku. Really one of my favorite interviews that we've ever done. He was great. So be sure to check out his celebrity celebrity softball. I've always got golf on the brain. Don't you worry.
Pro Bowl
softball tournament.
Yeah, Pro Bowl 85 code, guys. Use capital P. Use the unlock box. And it was it's a pleasure to have him on. He is larger than life. And like I said, he brings the energy. And he is literally a Clevelander. He reminds me of a lot of the players of the past that has really fell in love with the city in a lot of ways, and made this his home and proud to be a Cleveland Brown at the end of the day.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans, go Browns.
Go Browns.